Welcome to Cube Archetypes. The aim of this series is to give you a short, concise guide on a certain archetype in Cube. We'll go over what the strategy is trying to do, some key cards to include in your own cubes, and how it overlaps with other archetypes. On this episode, we're going to be looking at Mardu Pyromancer. While not a primary two-colour archetype of a cube, we're going to show you how by adding a few key cards you can easily add a whole new strategy into a cube environment. Generally speaking, this will be difficult to add to cubes that aren't running rares, as some of the key cards you want to run are of the golden rarity, with a couple of mythics sprinkled in. But it can have a home of a cube in any size, be it running power or not. The base of the deck is made up of cards you already find in a large portion of cubes. In white we have efficient removal, like Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile. In black you have hand attack with things like Thoughtseize, Duress and Inquisition of Kozilek, and that's alongside the obvious cheap black removal like all the Doomblade variants. In red you get nice cheap spells like Lightning Bolt and other direct damage spells. These cards, or cards like these, show up in the vast majority of cubes, because they are the things those colours are good at doing. The aim of them in this archetype is to control our opponent's board state and hand, so they're on the back foot in terms of resources. So let's talk about the actual Mardu Pyromancer package that you can add to your cube. Because of the overlap with cards you're already likely running, it's 6 simple cards that you need to add, and some of these may already be in your cube. When drafting a cube that has this strategy, these are the cards to look out for as a sign the strategy is open for you to move into. They're split into 2 sections. The top row is the most important in Monastery Mentor, Sedgemoor Witch and Young Pyromancer. These cards reward us for all the instants and sorceries that the deck is running, in the form of tokens that can defend our life total and swing through to win the game. The removal and the hand attack we're already running will strip our opponents of resources while furthering our game plan and putting us ahead. The cards below them are just really good at helping the deck power forward. Faithless Looting gives us 2 lots of card selection and help fills up our graveyard. Lingering Souls triggers our token makers while making flyers, and Bedlam Reveler refills our hand in the late game, which when combined with its prowess can become a lethal threat. Again, some of these cards may already be in your cube, with Young Pyromancer and Faithless Looting probably being the most likely. But even if not, by adding these 6 cards you can open up a whole new strategy to your cube environment. While those are the key cards, there are 2 others I want to mention, mainly because I like them. Those cards are Seasoned Pyromancer and Ox of Agonis. They both do a decent enough impression of Bedlam Reveler and are something to be considered. They're in no way as important, but if your cube is above 360, they do give some added redundancy to the strategy. What's nice about this strategy is how easy it cross-pollinates with other archetypes that a lot of cubes will already be running. First up is It. Most of the red cards you'll be running in your instants and sorcery sections can have a place in this archetype, with Bolt Effects and Faithless Looting being the most coveted. An It deck will also have no trouble running the namesake of the archetype as well, Young Pyromancer, and can easily run a Bedlam Reveler as a top-end finisher. Another very popular archetype with a lot of cross-pollination is Aristocrats, often found in either Radkos or Orzhov. The token makers that Mardu Pyromancer wants to run can easily have a place in an Aristocrat strategy. Going the other way, I could easily see a world where a Mardu Pyromancer deck wants to run a Blood Artist effect or 2 to make life miserable for their opponents. Another good overlap is a Boris token deck. Monastery Mentor and Young Pyromancer fit into that strategy pretty nicely. And on the other way around, the Mardu Pyromancer deck will like some of the Mass Creature Pump or the instants and sorceries that make more tokens themselves. And if you're running it, we'll note it will be great at digging up all 3 of our token makers in the Mardu Pyromancer deck, as they're all human. Lastly is a Pox or Stack strategy. In many ways, Mardu Pyromancer is an updated version of this strategy, as it uses spells to limit the opponent on resources while pushing you ahead. Pox and Stacks cards like Braids, Rankle and Liliana of the Veil can all serve a purpose in this strategy, while things like Lingering Souls and Sedgemoor Witch I think do a decent job in the other direction. Before we end today, let's quickly talk about drafting and playing the strategy. When drafting, as this is a 3-colour archetype, it's unlikely you'll be in it straight from the first couple of picks. It's more likely you've taken some early removal in some of these colours, or maybe even some of the lands. Towards the end of Pack 1, or maybe even in Pack 2, if you start seeing some of the cards from the package appear, especially the token makers, then that's a good indication that the archetype is open and you can move in on it. If you drafted your lands, then you can cherry pick the instants and sorceries from each of the colours. It's probably better to be base 2 colours splashing a third, just to make it easier on your mana base. In terms of makeup of the deck, you want a higher amount of instants and sorceries than normal, but don't go below 10 or so creatures. Look for creatures that interact with instants and sorceries, or personally, I quite like the recursive threats in black, as it allows you to play a more mid-range control strategy with the addition of some board wipes. When playing the games, I'd recommend being much more reactionary to your opponent's board state, answering their big threats, while using your hand attack to remove any troublesome cards before they hit the battlefield. When your opponent looks to be all out of their own kill spells, that's when you can drop one of your token makers to get things moving to the endgame. Thank you very much for watching. Full disclosure, the idea for this series of videos came from a very good forum post on MTG Salvation that I know a lot of cube makers have got a lot of use from. So a link to that article will be down in the description below, along with links to my own cubes. If you're thinking of getting started in Cube, I'd highly recommend the Solely Singleton Starter Cube as a great place to begin. Links to that will also be down in the description. Let us know down in the comments if there's any other archetypes you would like us to have a look at. Thank you very much.